Hello and welcome on the Watches TV for this new edition of Primetime Watchmaking in the News. And the big news is naturally the cancellation of Watches and Wonders, ex-SIHH and Baselworld. And with this comes obviously a lot of questions and a bit of thinking. What are going to be some of the consequences? How is the future looking for watch events? Could this actually be an opportunity or the end of it all? And I will develop on all these points and more in a minute. But nevertheless, don't worry, there are some other news, such as a few cool new watches presented recently. But overall, let's be honest, we're in some kind of bleak moment for the industry. And this naturally goes well beyond watchmaking. Nevertheless, enjoy the show. I will try to present things on the positive side. Well, you know me, I'm an optimist by nature. Glass is always half full. Well, as long as you look the other direction. Okay, well, just kidding. So let's do this in a crescendo mode. And I had mentioned in the previous edition of Primetime that Seiko had already announced that they wouldn't take part in this year's Baselworld. And this was way before this coronavirus situation. Well, instead, they wanted to do their own event in Tokyo in early March. But actually, there were probably a bit more political reason than this. But anyhow, and this time, due to the COVID-19, well, they had to cancel the event in Japan. And this is really too bad because 2020 marks the 60th anniversary of Grand Seiko. First, the collection sold only in Japan, and since 10 years, well, sold internationally. Well, a couple of years ago, Grand Seiko became a full entity / brand of its own and is doing what it takes to get the recognition they deserve with some really fine products. So to mark this 60th anniversary, and will probably be in for a few product releases throughout the year, well, they started to do so with two mechanical ones. One man and one woman version from the Heritage line, both automatic, both with blue dials, and the first one equipped with the high beat caliber 9S85 and limited, if one can say so, to 1500 pieces, and the ladies model with caliber 9S27 and limited to 300 pieces. Still talking about ladies pieces, MB&F revealed new versions of the Flying T, that's the brand's first piece dedicated to women, launched successfully last year, but this time these Flying Ts are coming without any diamond set on them, but either in a rose gold case with beautiful black guilloche dial, or in a platinum version with blue guilloche dial. So both limited to 18 pieces, a more reasonable number associated with the term limited in my view, and really beautifully looking. Okay, there were just a few other interesting watches, but here at the Watches Club we had a few more to show you, as we decided to add the vintage watch section to our boutique, and this for two reasons. Well, first, it's obviously to help us finance our video production, okay, that's normal. But secondly, it is also to offer the opportunity of acquiring and wear some cool pieces at a decent price. A nice way for those entering the world of mechanical watches, and or a way to complement a collection for those that are already into it. So well, every month we will present approximately 10 new pieces. Here's a quick glimpse at what will soon be added, and just to let you know, but our patrons do get a first choice on all boutique add-ons, as they receive a special message informing them on the new selection with the private URL. Again, the small and normal perk for those supporting us on Patreon, and you're all welcome to join. And we'll normally film all new editions, films made available on our other dedicated YouTube channel called thewatches.boutique. Because I really don't want to bother you here with all these new add-ons on the Watches TV. You can also obviously visit our website for further info. But really the idea is that we have a club here in Geneva, in the Old Town, with 3 pillars, and obviously video coverage being number one, then our travel arrangement, our watch tripping activity, and we unfortunately also have to face this COVID-19 situation. And with this boutique, whether online or physical here, you can find some pretty cool places. But please stay reassured, because our mission number one will always remain video production. Okay, enough of this, and let's now go hardcore and let's talk business, because quite some action here recently, and this was obviously really up in the air. But with the rapid deterioration of the situation in Europe with this virus, well, a decision had to be taken. And like I said, it goes well beyond the watchmaking industry, but many public events have simply been cancelled all over the place. Here in Geneva, the Geneva Motor Show was about to open this week, but organizers had to pull the plug just a few days before the opening. And all in all, well, this will have severe consequences, but let's focus more on its watchmaking impacts. And despite what some people wanted to show with some questionable performance numbers, masking the fact that 3 million watches were less produced in 2019 in Switzerland alone, well, the industry was already facing some tough times, and what will ineluctably turn out as a serious blow on global economic growth, at least on the first semester of this year, well, people have other things on their minds instead of buying new watches, and this is naturally understandable. But the cancellation of the big show will also have an effect on the overall visibility of the industry and the many new watches which should have been presented. And this means that brands will have to find alternatives, and it could turn out to be interesting to see how and who will better manage this situation. So let's go back on these last few days and let's be chronological. At first, a few brands continued to pull out of the shows, nothing new, but this time specifically because of the virus situation, such as Bulgari from Baselworld, a big and very visible player of Hole 1, followed by Citizen, which at that point meant no presence of large Japanese companies anymore. Quite a signal. But on our side, and prior to the current situation, well, I was seriously questioning how we would cover this year's edition of both shows, and I really wanted to take our coverage on a slightly different route. And the cancellation will simply make things even more clearer for us on how we plan to do things. Anyhow, as days followed, the level of anxiety was also climbing at the HQ of both shows organizers. What to do? Well, there were no clear signals coming from Watches and Wonder, but you have to remember that Watches and Wonder is mainly a Richmond Group brand event. Okay, it might summarize it a little bit too much, since we also have so many independent brands present, and there were supposed to be a few new ones such as Arnold & Son, Fabergé, Pernell. But what I particularly mean is that many Richmond brands are very exposed in Asia and in general, and in China in particular. So to put it short, well, they've taken quite a serious hit over the last few months, and therefore the board of the group found itself in a rather prudent mood and mode, and basically thinking of how to best deal with the situation, cut some of their losses while not losing face too much at the same time. So on the Baselworld side, where more or less 10 days ago we received a press release stating that everything was going to plan, actually they even used the sentence "business as usual." Well, that seemed quite confident, a bit too much for sure. But what was indeed business as usual was the prices of things. And like I said, I had not yet made any travel arrangements for the team and myself to go there. But I started looking for accommodations, and as a quick reminder, well, the organizers had said a few months ago that they made deals with the local hotel association to maintain prices as reasonable as possible. Well, when I checked the web, well, no surprise there. I mean, still ridiculously high for some clumsy hotels and not much different on the Airbnb side of things. So also people thinking we're still in the good old milking days. And it will be interesting and sad at the same time to check out these prices in a couple of days. Well, now all this is gone. Any greedy temperament has just been washed away, and people can only adapt to what could become a much longer than expected reality. Because it's only when things seem to get a bit out of control in Italy a few days back that everything accelerated around here. And the paradox is that it coincided with the first kind of good news, if one can say so, coming from China, where the numbers of people infected and casualties were starting to decrease gently. Well, last Thursday, the 27th, the news came early in the morning that Watches and Wonder would simply be cancelled. Watches and Wonder at the convention center, and all our other festivities and activities which were supposed to happen for the first time throughout the city of Geneva. And we interrupt this program for some breaking news, because between the moment we recorded this prime time and the moment we were about to push the publish buttons for our patrons, well, some fresh news just came in as a group of brands under the leadership of Bulgari, and including so far MB&F, De Bethune, Girard-Perregaux, Ulysse Nardin, among others, well, they just announced that they will still do something special during the original days of Watches and Wonder, meaning end of April 26th to 29th, and this will be called the Geneva Watch Days. So to make it short, some brands will still host a special exhibition in their respective boutiques in Geneva, and so far, well, that's about what we know about it, but what's interesting is that each brand will do with what they have. It's not necessarily an arms race, but a way of leveraging the influence of each other and having members of the press and retailers still come to Geneva and try to benefit from some extra visibility, because yes, I mean, visibility is the big victim of this crisis. So we will keep you posted on this initiative, because ultimately, I mean, it could be good and again in phase with the evolution of watch events. So okay, back to you, and let's get back to the story of the day. So in the meantime, Baselworld still giving the illusion that it could win this battle and saying that it would communicate its decision on Monday the 1st. But on Friday morning, the 29th, Swiss authorities officially banned any public activity till March the 15th, when it implied grouping of 1,000 people or more. Well, the grounds were looking not very good for Baselworld, and they simply couldn't wait till the 1st, and on that very same Black Friday also announced the cancellation, but they actually took the attention of not using this word. Cancel sounds like a defeat, and instead referred to the fact that the event was actually postponed, and this till 2021. And not very elegantly already announcing dates, and personally I think they could have waited a few days for this, like, you know, a grieving period to be respected, because yes, some will seriously suffer from this. I mean, many expenses have already been paid when it comes to participating at these events. A lot of cash is already out, of course some will be saved, but this could significantly weaken some companies that are already struggling a bit, and could unfortunately replicate what has recently happened to the brand De Grisogono, which went bankrupt, a brand mostly known for its very creative jewelry, but had also come up with some very interesting technical development over the years, and I'm talking almost 20 years. And more recently, on the design side, with the new retro, personally thought it had an interesting design. Well, this company is gone, but I have to add that some rotten investment had been made in the company, which obviously didn't help, but doesn't explain everything. And coming back on that same Black Friday, was also announced that Romain Jérôme, RG Watches, would also file for bankruptcy. So, hallelujah, what a cheerful day! And true that those two brands had been struggling, so no real total shocker, but still sad news and not a positive sign for sure. So some brands will face tough times. Cash, like I said, have been spent for nothing. Less visibility, less social media presence, retailers and collectors not coming. And with a bit of sarcasm, it can only prove so right for the LVMH brand to have done their little thing earlier in Dubai. And also for those brands that cleverly piggy-tailed the event. For once, it wasn't LVMH invited as the free guest of SIHH Watches and Wonder, but a real turnaround. Anyhow, the consequences of these cancellations will have an effect well beyond the brands. Just on the event side, think of all the suppliers, stand and booth builders, hotels, catering, security services, limo services, where it's just a huge loss. And for the industry as a whole, obviously the consequences will be severe, even though not all can or should be blamed on the show's cancellation and this coronavirus situation. And I'm sincerely worried that technical suppliers of many brands will indeed suffer greatly. Jobs are on the line. But now the big question, well, what next? Could this be a serious opportunity to think differently? In the short run, certainly. In the longer run, well, we know that we do like to repeat the same mistakes over and over again, but let's remain optimistic. And for me, well, the fundamental assessment can be summarized as follows. Does the industry need a large watch event? Well, for me, the answer is yes. Does it need to follow today's concept? Well, most certainly not. I mean, again, the overall environment has changed. Social media changed most of the rules, and brands prefer to distill the divulgation of their new pieces throughout the year. Avoid unnecessary cannibalization. Watch dealers also prefer to order throughout the year now. And some dealers have also been kind of slightly abandoned over the last years, with the groups and brands taking into their own hands the retailing side of their business. But anyhow, to have a singular moment where the industry reunites definitely has some pertinence, but to do so, coming back to some rationality, and yes, why not, one event for all, send a signal of unity in this highly competitive environment would be nice. And I know I may be dreaming a little bit, but that's the only thing that would make sense to me. Otherwise, let's have brands do their own things when and wherever they want, but I believe this would just precipitate the ill fate of some players. So one location, yes, and the Basel people are more flexible as they own the facility, but overall infrastructure is better in Geneva in terms of hosting and logistics, and I'm not being chauvinistic by saying this. So naturally, scrapping Baselworld as location would mean that kind of a fatal recognition that their investment strategy with these new halls was completely unnecessary. Oops, a few hundred millions there. But one has to think of the bigger picture. And yes, there will be losers, but do we need a shock that can revitalize the scene or just a slow and inevitable death? Well, okay, everybody agreed that this year's dates were too late, but there has also been some talks of pushing back the event in fall, September, October timeframe. And this would actually make sense. It would let brands prepare adequately for the high demanding end of season period with Christmas and so forth. So time for a change, but now we know that nothing will happen in 2020, which means that the various small watch shows around the world, mainly held during the second semester, should become higher priorities for brands to reach out to the final consumers. So to summarize things, I just hope we get back to one big and consensual event in 2021, whether early in the year or indeed why not in fall. But again, I might be wishful thinking, and on a totally different topic, and to show that nothing is simple with watchmaking, well, the restoration of London's iconic Big Ben is also going through the roof and way above budget. But here it's mainly expenses are linked with the actual building work, the tower kind of leaning a little bit like the Pisa Tower. Well, nothing is easy for sure. So all in all, and as a recap, well, we have a big problem on the demand side, brands not selling watches in Asia, watches whose prices have increased too much over the last 10 years and no longer appealing to European and on American markets. But at the same time, we start to see a problem on the offer side with Asian companies not being able to produce and deliver what has been outsourced to them, like cases, dial, and so forth. Well, the good news, and I am being a little bit ironic there, is that the stock levels will again be super high, and this is never a good thing, especially if you add that often in such a crisis, the value of the Swiss franc generally increases, and this is currently the case, meaning that Swiss export will become more expensive. Well, definitely not making things any easier. Well, you kind of see the conundrum, and this is not going to be an easy one to get out of. A fascinating one for sure, but a pretty complex and brutal one, I'm afraid. Anyhow, we still think positively here. We still have so many passion stories to share with you, and I would really like to thank those that commented on our latest QP artistic experiment. That was fun to do, but much more complicated than what it looked like. But it has given us idea, which is a good thing. Anyhow, a huge thanks for watching. Many thanks to our patrons for your extremely appreciated support. Please remember that patrons have some timely advantages when it comes to the new pieces added to the boutique. Special vintage watches in particular, among other things. We, of course, still have a few slots available for our watch stripping activity. And yes, we've also been hit by Mr. Corona. But let's again remain optimistic. Thanks to all. Remember that time is what you make of it, and a massive Viva Watchmaking to you. See you very soon.